And we're live. Good afternoon and welcome to Tech Talks. My name is Kelsey Ruff-Smith and I am the Director of Programs here at the Community Foundation for Ocala, Marion County. And joining us today is Ellen, who's with us from BoardEffect, and she's going to be telling us all about their board management, and I'm so excited to hear more about it. Hi, Ellen. How are you?
Hi, Kelsey. I'm great. Thanks so much for that introduction. I'm excited to talk a little bit about modern governance today and our board portal solution for your
Yes.
members. And so thanks for having me. And I'll go through just a couple of slides, and then I'll actually go through and just do a quick preview of our software. And I do
Perfect.
encourage anybody, if they have any questions or comments, to post those so that we can make this as interactive as possible. And hopefully we'll have some lively conversation and questions. So you should be seeing my screen. I've got, as I mentioned, just a couple of slides I want to go over. BoardEffect is a modern governance solution, and what that means is that we partner with our clients to provide technology insights and process to fuel good governance. And so we want to make sure that organizations are able to effectively communicate and engage with their board members to effectively achieve the mission of the organization. Just a little bit about BoardEffect. We serve markets of all types and sizes, but we specifically serve the nonprofit community. So over 80% of our clients are nonprofits, but we do, of course, also work with banks and hospitals and private and public companies. But I just wanted to kind of point out our mission is to serve mission-driven organizations. And so as part of my agenda today, I want to talk just a little bit about the challenges in the nonprofit sector, especially those that we help avoid, manage, or minimize through our software solution, and then talk just a little bit about why BoardEffect, what's our specific value proposition, and then talk a little bit about our product and how it looks, feels, and operates. And so some of the challenges that we see working with nonprofits is that our clients that we partner with are trying to find ways to increase efficiency, and that goes for in preparing for board meetings, getting information out to board meetings, getting and soliciting feedback from board members, just trying to compress the amount of time and effort and attention it takes to get what you need from your board and give your board what they need from you. Also, board turnover. We want to make sure that we offer a solution that can give you some valuable insights to help with board member recruitment, helping out nomination committees identify holes and gaps, maybe in some diversity amongst your board. Also, board engagement. We understand that with nonprofit boards, a lot of times they are volunteer positions, and so you want to make sure that you're getting the value from your board members and driving that high level of engagement. We have found that a tool like BoardEffect allows you to give your board members access at the touch of a button at their fingertips to anything and everything they need to effectively serve your organization. Also, securing funding is always an issue with nonprofits, and so we want to allow you to give the tools to your board members to be able to effectively fundraise. We understand that resources can be limited, and we want to make sure that we're also providing a very strong ROI on your investment in a board portal. And then also the concept of data security and reputational risk. A lot of our clients are currently maybe emailing board materials or printing and shipping, and so that's really not a modern governance best practice. We want to make sure that our clients are appropriately applying the appropriate security metrics around communicating maybe potentially sensitive information amongst your board. So these are just some of the challenges, because we work so closely within the nonprofit sector, that we have identified, and that we, as I mentioned earlier, do help avoid, manage, or minimize the risk of those. As far as the why BoardEffect, and Kelsey, please do stop me if we have any questions. I want to make sure that I give plenty of opportunity for that feedback. As far as kind of, the why BoardEffect, we kind of filter everything we do through these 5 lenses. I'll start off with securities, kind of tying back into what I just wrapped up the previous slide talking about. At BoardEffect, we take security very seriously. We spend over $10 million a year on our security and infrastructure. And so with that, we are SOC compliant. We do third-party penetration vulnerability scans. We are HIPAA compliant with a high-tech certification. Everything in our software is encrypted, both in transit and at rest. And what we're trying to do is partner with you to add an extra layer of control around the information that you're sharing with your board. Another thing that we think is very important is that our software is easy and intuitive to use. We understand that amongst all boards, there's going to be varying levels of comfort utilizing technology. So we want to make sure that even the less tech-savvy board member can pick up our software and effectively use it. And so I'll talk a little bit more about kind of how we approach training and support before we wrap up. But the average age of our end user is actually 69 years old. So we understand the demographic that we're working with, and we provide tools and tips and help in any way that we can to make sure that we overcome any hurdles to utilizing technology. Another point that I want to talk about is just the concept of having control around the information that you're sharing. So you can limit who can see what they can do with it. Can things be printed, emailed, and or downloaded or not? You can have varying levels of access. If you have committees on your board, you can set it up so that board members only have access to the groups and committees they specifically belong to. So that control and security do kind of tie in very closely to one another. Another thing that I think we do a really good job at providing value is our integration panel. And so we have several third-party integrations that tie directly into our software. Most popular of late is we do have a full integration with both GoToMeeting and Zoom. And so we actually had these before the COVID-19 crisis kind of turned board meetings upside down, and in-person meetings were no longer happening. So our clients that were able to just switch that button on and start launching their Zoom and their GoToMeetings directly from the portal really saw immediate value add there. We have some other integrations I'll walk you through on the product side of the demonstration. And then lastly, the concept of mobility. And so we have a web platform where you can access our platform on any web browser of your choosing, but we do also have apps. So we have an iPhone, an iPad, a Kindle, and Android app. And so you can access the device on the portal on any device of your choice. Any questions, Kelsey?
None so far.
Okay, wonderful. The last slide I have here before jumping into the product, just talk a little bit about our framework. A lot of organizations come to us because they have a need to address in their meeting cycle, which is, how do we get our board materials to board members? How do we schedule events? How do we assign approvals and tasks? And how do we give access to archived and historical information? And that's the meeting cycle, but really we add value in the annual and development cycle of board work as well. The annual cycle might include an annual conflict of interest survey or questionnaire. Maybe it's, budgeting, auditing, compliance, those things, policy handbooks that are updated maybe annually. And then also the development cycle where we do help you with recruitment and collaboration tools and board orientation and reporting. And so these are the areas, kind of the three circles where we add value: the meeting, the annual, and the development cycle. So I am going to switch gears here and actually show you the platform. All right, so what you're seeing right here is our web platform. I mentioned earlier we do also have several apps. The good news is our website and our apps look almost identical, and so you can go between the two interchangeably and not feel like you're using two different systems. When you first log in to a BoardEffect platform, you're going to see the logo for the organization that you serve, and then you have this welcome area, and the welcome area content is highly customizable. I have a video embedded here. We have a lot of clients that put text or images or both. A lot of our clients right now are putting their COVID-19 response here. It's kind of like an e-bulletin board, so you're not having to send emails to your board members, then having it, get lost in the black hole of their inbox, and, embedded with hundreds of other emails they might be receiving daily. You can control what messaging they see when they first log in. Additionally, any news items, press releases, announcements, anything you want to share can be shared in this news area. And then you can set an expiration date for that news to go into the background after that time lapses. The BoardEffect announcements are only going to be visible to administrative users. So that's how BoardEffect communicates with you about new features or resources that we think would be relevant and helpful to you. Also, over to the left, you'll see I have several different groups set up. And so you can set up as many boards and committees as you want. So maybe you have a board and then you have a grants committee, a nominating committee, an audit committee, and an executive committee. When you set those up in our system and you assign users, they're only going to see the information for the groups and committees they specifically belong to. So if I'm not on the nominating committee, I'm not going to see the nominating committee events, files, or materials. Also, below the welcome area, you'll see a list of upcoming events. And so for all the groups and committees that you're assigned to, you're going to see in date order those upcoming events. Also, as a board member, you can subscribe to that the calendar in BoardEffect, and whenever your administrator adds an event in BoardEffect, it'll automatically pre-populate on your personal calendar. So whether you're using Outlook or Gmail or iOS calendar, it's going to have and allow redundancy as far as the events you have in BoardEffect and the events that you have on your personal calendar. And you can also RSVP and allow your administrators visibility into whether or not you can attend a meeting or not. As luck would have it, we added the remote option back in January. And so you can, as you can guess, that's probably the most common, if not only way people are attending meetings these days. But you, a board member or the board member's administrative assistant, if they have one, can select their RSVP response, and then the admin can pull a report to see who's planning to come or who cannot come to a particular meeting. I'm going to open up our board book in just a little bit, but I'm going to show you a couple additional features before going back there. So if I go down a little bit further, you'll see there's a section called My Polls and Surveys. And so in addition to a calendar of events and all of your meeting materials that correspond to those events, you might have feedback that you want to get from your board outside of a physical meeting. Maybe it's approval of minutes or approval of budgets, or just asking them what they want for lunch at a meeting, or is their spouse coming with them to this particular conference. You can use the tool to effectively and efficiently solicit that feedback from your board and committee members, and then you can pull those results by individual or as a summary aggregate report. And so, for example, if there's a board self-assessment that I need to complete, I simply click on that, and you'll see here that there's an example of a survey with several questions. Now, this is an example of a survey with open-ended questions. We allow ranking, drop-downs, multiple choice, and so you can create templates in our system, and you can reuse those templates. For example, conflict of interest questionnaires are very popular. You can set one up and then reuse it every year or whatever frequency is required. An example of, for example, an assessment of key accountabilities for your board. If you were to click on that, you can see here this is an example of a survey with several different question types. And you can also require a signature. So we do have an e-signature component. Just want to pause. Kelsey, have there been any questions?
Not yet, but we do have a couple people watching right now. I'm watching them sit here. So if they've got any, it's just a reminder, go ahead and put those questions you have in the comments so that I can relay them back to Ellen.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks for joining, everyone. Another thing I wanted to mention is that I know it's sometimes hard to find the perfect meeting date where you have the highest probability of attendance and availability. So we also have a scheduler component so that if there, for example, needs to be a conference call that happens in the next week with your audit committee, you can put in a scheduler. Kind of acts like a doodle poll if you're familiar with that. And so it'll alert those committee members to log in and select their name and their availability. And so that report will give the administrator visibility into what date should be selected for the meeting based on the availability of board members. We also have it set up that you can, if you have an executive assistant or an administrative professional that helps support you and manage your calendar, that they can respond on a board member's behalf. This is a really popular tool that we have. In addition to your calendar and your surveys, and your committees, we also have a resource library. And so the resource library is a way to give your board and committee members consistent, easy, secure access to any all documents and materials that they need access to in a secure environment. You have unlimited file storage here. You can have as many folders and subfolders as you want. And then all the board of directors have access to all the board of directors files. You can also set up subfolders, subfolders. And so you'll notice that some of the folders and some of the files have these little lock icons. And what that means is when you add files to the resource library, you can lock them down by individual or by a group of individuals. So if I go over here to security, I can see that I have this folder locked down to 3 people. So only these 3 individuals have access to the files in this folder. So it's a great way to segregate information. Also, each user has their own private folder. And so we want to empower your board members to go in and see and access all information that they need so they can effectively serve your organization. We do also have a very interactive, very comprehensive member directory. So it's kind of like a living roster of your board and committee members, and you're able to track very important information about your board members, and it's highly customizable. And so you can actually see everyone on your portal as a user. You can also sort and filter by committee. You can also export user information by Excel or as a PDF. And then if I click on my profile, you can see here our standard fields are company information, personal information, a list of all the boards and committees I serve on. We also allow you to track and include term information and pull reports on that. And then we also have an additional tab which allows you to include custom fields. So I've gone in and added some demographic information, some performance standards, and then some additional custom fields that I like to track about my board. The really cool thing about these fields is that you can include that information, but then you can also pull reports to get valuable information. So if I go here to settings and go here to custom fields, this is where I go in and add whatever field it is. We do have a lot of clients that will track, let's say, financial contributions. They want to make sure that all their board members are making a meaningful contribution to that particular board that they're serving on. And so you can actually track that and make it invisible so that nobody sees it in their public profile, but then you can pull a report to see at what levels each person is giving individually. So that's an example of a custom field that we see very often. But if I go here to reports, I can pull those custom field reports. I can also pull information about terms, so I can see whose term is ending this year. I can also sort by user or committee, see if they've had an officer role, etc. I mentioned earlier that board engagement is on the forefront of a lot of our clients' minds. And so we do give you a way to effectively track and monitor attendance from an engagement perspective. So you can see amongst your board and committee members, you know, what their attendance record is, what is considered acceptable from an attendance perspective. You can also track useful data on login activity. And so if you're providing meeting materials a week in advance, but your board members are not looking at it until the day before, you have that insight, so you can maybe even adjust your processes to allow maybe for more time to prepare for a meeting if you realize that it's not being reviewed until the day before. As I mentioned earlier, integrations is a really big component. We have several clients that use single sign-on service, and so we actually have off-the-shelf, plug-and-play single sign-on. We also integrate with Salesforce and Tableau. We also integrate with, as I mentioned, GoToMeeting and Zoom, Google Drive, and we also have an open API so that we can actually create custom applications. So for example, maybe you have a fundraising software and you want to implement it to integrate with our tool. We can work with you to get that set up, as long as they have an open API as well. Now, before I go to the event and the board book, Kelsey, just want to check in and make sure everything is okay on your end.
We are still doing great over here. Thanks for checking in, Ellen.
Perfect. So let's go here to this June 30th board meeting, and this is what we call the event card. And so if you go in here, you can see, you know, who's attending, and you can expand that to see all and see who's not attending, for example. You'll also see a join meeting button. I have Zoom turned on, so there's a Zoom meeting associated with this event. So when I'm ready to start this event on the 30th at 5 p.m., I click join meeting. The Zoom is going to launch. It's going to provide me with contact information, and it's also going to initiate the video if you have that turned on. And then you'll also notice there is a book associated with this event. So when I click on the book, it's going to pull up the event material for this particular board meeting, and it will start by having a nicely formatted cover page. And then there's also, as you scroll through, an agenda. The agenda is populated and customized by the administrator, so it's going to have all the appropriate agenda content that you need to share or have shared with you. And then you just simply scroll through and you have access to your entire board book. I can fit it to the width of my screen to make it a little bit larger. Also, you'll notice to the left, the agenda stays docked. So if anytime I want to go to a specific section, let's say I want to jump to the governance read, I can click on that and it takes me right to that section. If I then want to go to the reports, it takes me right there. So as you can see here, I've marked up this material. As a board member, they each have a unique login and password, and so they can actually annotate on their materials, and they are by default private. So if I wanted to highlight something here, I can highlight that. We also have, we can do electronic post-it notes. We can actually write directly on the page. And so once I've taken my notes, I can see a list of all of my notes, and I can click through and go to that particular note. And then once I click on the note, I can edit it, delete it, and I could even share it if you have share turned on, where your board members can share notes and annotations amongst themselves. You can also do keyword searches. So if I want to search for a specific word or a specific phrase, I can search within the system and it will take me right to that page where that word occurs. So I was searching for the balance sheet and it takes me right there. You can also, as I mentioned, turn on or off printing and or downloading. And so you do have the ability to control what is available outside the portal. If you have information that is highly sensitive, maybe you don't turn printing on. We have a lot of clients, probably about 60% of our clients, if they have printing turned on, have watermarks turned on so that it actually prints the person's name, date, and the words confidential so that we know if it gets in the wrong hands, we know where that originated from. As far as the back end of how to create a board book, I'll just kind of take that book we just looked through and I will show you how it was created. And so our system allows you, again, as I mentioned with surveys, to create templates. And so if you have a cover page and an agenda template that you want to reuse meeting over meeting, you can leverage those and pull them in. You can also start from scratch each time. It's completely up to you. So I have templates that's pre-filled. So this is the information that is showing in my cover page. This is the information that's shown in my agenda. And then for each agenda item, I just drag and drop or click to upload the appropriate files. You can upload files in their native format, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, PDF. Our system does automatically compress, convert, and optimize those into a PDF for you. And it merges it into one big document. And so if the CEO comes to you and says, you know what, I want to do the CEO report last, you just drag that to the bottom of the section, hit save. It automatically repaginates everything. If you find a mistake in the financials, you just simply hit replace. You replace the old file with the new file. Instantaneously, your board members have access to the newest version of the software, or the book rather. When they log in next, if they've already looked at the old version, it will prompt them with a notice saying, since you last logged in, the financials have been updated. So they have that visual reminder. And then also, if they had any notes on those financials and they were since replaced, we do have what we call annotation preservation, which means that the notes will be maintained on the new version. So that's a really, really popular feature that we have that we're really proud to offer our clients. And then also we have this concept of contributors, which is also another really, really popular feature. And the use case for that is, let's say you have a third-party auditor that provides an audit report to the board on an annual basis, and you want that audit report provided in the upcoming board meeting. You can go in here to the section and click Manage Contributors. You can type in your auditor's email and click Add, and it will send them a message saying that the BoardEffect administrator for XYZ organization has asked you to contribute to the audit report section of the upcoming board meeting. In that email, there's a link they click the email link, it opens up an upload box, they upload the file, hit save, and then it alerts me as the administrator that the audit report has been added. So you're not allowing that person access to your portal, you're not paying for them a license, but you're allowing them to seamlessly and effectively contribute material to that particular book. And once you have all of your files uploaded in the appropriate order, you just simply hit Build Book, and it will build the book for you, and then it will ask you to attach it to whatever meeting that book corresponds to. So it's a really easy way to prepare and share information with your board members before, during, and after the meeting. You can make edits. What we have found is that what used to take maybe 6 hours can be done in 1 hour or less, as far as if you are currently, let's just say, creating a merged PDF in Adobe and emailing that out to your board. We offer a lot more efficient ways to, for example, edit those documents as needed. So I'm just going to attach this to this meeting and I'm done. So that's how easy it is to create your board book. Now we also have a minutes module. And so what we have found is that a lot of our clients would like a tool to be able to effectively create minutes real time, to assign tasks and get minutes approved in an efficient manner. And so if I go here to take minutes for this particular event, it's going to automatically pull up our minutes builder, and it's going to create the minute headings based on your agenda topics for you. And so if I go in here, it already knows who my attendees are based on the RSVPs. And then you can also add additional attendee information. So if you have a guest presenter or a third party, you can add their information in here. And then in here are all the agenda sections, and you just simply type those in. So let me create one from scratch here, create new. So let's just say this is my June board meeting, and it's happening on the 30th at 5 p.m. And then, oh, sorry about that. I did not hit the OK button. And then I can include a meeting location. It's automatically going to populate if I did have a meeting location in my event card. And then you just simply hit create minutes. And that's when it's going to pull in those categories. And then you can simply just type. So here are my minutes. You'll notice you can format it just like you would in Word with bullet points, bold, italics, underline, etc. You can also very easily add new sections. And then one of the really popular tools is, let's just say you're in a meeting and someone says, oh, I'll follow up on that. Well, you can actually assign an action. So if the board member says he will call attorney on a specific issue to get some legal opinion, I can do that and I can assign this to Mr. Stan Graves. I can say, you know what, he said he would do it by July 3rd. And I want to assign it to this particular section and hit add. It's going to email a reminder to Stan and let him know that he has that particular task assigned to him that was discussed during the meeting. And then also, as you go through your minutes, you can save it as a draft. So during the meeting, maybe you do shorthand notes. Then after the meeting, you go back in and you fill it in, you make it look nice. You have maybe another person review them, make sure that you captured everything correctly. And then you can mark it as in review. And then you can assign individuals to review those. Maybe you have an executive director that needs to review those. And then they are put in final draft, and then it will go to the board for a vote, and then it will show up as approved once it has been approved. If it is not approved, it'll allow the board member to make a note on why they are rejecting that particular version of the minutes. So it does absolutely streamline the process for taking and approving minutes. Kelsey, any questions?
There are no questions still right now. You are good.
Okay, wonderful. I did want to talk just a little bit about kind of implementation, training, and support. We do offer 24/7 customer support by phone or email. We also have a very robust knowledge base. So while we are available to help you anytime, any day, we have some users that prefer kind of learn on their own. So if you click on our knowledge base, it'll ask you whether or not you're an admin or a board member. And once you make that selection, it will provide you with orientation videos, very useful articles and help guides. We even have FAQs. So if I need to know, how to make annotations, I can search in here and it will pull up all the articles that have to do with making annotations. And so right here, if I need to know how to share an annotation on the iPad, it'll give you very detailed instructions on how to do so. Now we also do very robust admin training and board member training as part of our implementation process. So you would be assigned a dedicated person to help you throughout the process, where you do have the ability to schedule a kickoff call, align on goals and timeline, and set up weekly for 4 to 6 weeks training calls where we help you configure. We share with you use cases and best practices. We share with you a lot of information and content and thought leadership. And then, of course, we also formally train the board members. So that's what I had planned to share with you today, just to give you a little bit of background on, why BoardEffect is helping kind of transform organizations by providing modern governance best practices, give you a little bit of insights into what our clients see us as far as adding value and helping us address, challenges that they're facing, and then wanted to give you just a little glimpse into our software at a very high level. So Kelsey, if we don't have any other questions, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to kind of go through those with you here live.
We don't have any other questions, but I think you've done such a great job covering everything. Now, one thing I do always want to touch on, can you go over just a little bit about how pricing works with the software and how an organization would start the process of onboarding?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And so the way that we price is a per user license fee. So we do price in blocks of 20. So 1 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, and so on. We do have some organizations that have several hundred users, and so we start making the blocks of 50 once it gets over 100. And we actually do a price. It's a sliding scale based on operating budgets. And so a $200,000 a year budget of a nonprofit is going to pay less per user than a nonprofit that has a budget of $1 billion, for example. And so if anybody who is watching or sees the replay has any questions about pricing, my email is Glasgow, and my name is spelled Glasgow at boardeffect.com, and I will be happy to provide you with a formal quote based on your organization size, scope, and number of user requirements. But I will also add that one of the things we pride ourselves on is being a high value tool. So I hope that as I have conversations with you all, that you will see that the pricing does provide a very compelling ROI. And depending on the size of your organization, it could be as low as $3,000 a year. And so please do reach out to me. Do not hesitate if you want to get a formal price quote. And then as far as next steps, if you're interested in using BoardEffect, if you just let me know, I put together a simple 2-page order form, and then the same day we provision a URL and get working on training. So it's a really simple, low hurdle onboarding process.
That sounds great. I hear some stories of some of these places where you go to start onboarding and it kind of just becomes a nightmare for not only the staff and, the members of the organization, but also for the board. So it sounds like this is a pretty streamlined, straightforward approach for sure.
Yes, I've heard of those nightmares as well. Those are those stories. And honestly, the more effort we put into helping with the implementation process, the more there is a higher chance of a long-term successful relationship. I mean, our retention data is we do retain year over year over 96% of our client base, and I don't think that would be nearly as high if we did not go the extra mile during implementation. It's very rare that someone does not renew. It's typically a situation where unfortunately an organization is no longer in business, or there's a merger or an acquisition where two entities become one and they no longer need the software. So that's a great point, and we really do pride ourselves on that support we provide during the implementation phase, and then of course ongoing as well.
That's fantastic. Well, I know that you've answered all of the main points I normally get asked about everything. So I think that covers all the questions that I even have on my end. But again, if you just say your email one more time for anybody to jot down that wants to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. My email is Glasgow, Glasgow at boardeffect.com.
Well, I thank you so much for being here today and for all of your flexibility. And I'm really grateful that you were able to be here for us today and tell us more about BoardEffect. I can't wait to hear about some experiences that our members have with it. And I just want to thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. It was a pleasure, and I'm happy to come back and answer any follow-up questions or do another session. So I
That
do
sounds
appreciate
great.
you providing this value to your members, and hope to hear from some of them soon.
Yes. All right, y'all. Take care. Happy Tuesday.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.